here.
Let's do it.
All right, welcome in, guys. There's a lot going on in the CrossFit ecosystem currently. Patrick actually was invited to be a guest on Pedro's show, Around the Whiteboard, over on Coffee Pods and Wads podcast. So he's still finishing that up over there. I believe he will come and join us when he's done. They were just finishing up their final question, and then they'll get into the winner and the sound off or whatever. So Patrick should be with us in a little while. There's also a CrossFit Jeopardy episode on today in a little bit. So if you guys are a fan of that Chase has put together over on Get With The Programming, you can check it out live or after the fact. It's always fun to play along. And Peter himself will be on that show along with two-time defending champion Leah Miller from West Coast semifinal this year. We are taking a little bit of a break from the athlete interviews today. And so we have kind of three little parts to the show. We have Charlie here with us from the BCS Classic, and we're going to give him some time here to talk about a really cool competition and cause that he has been driving force behind for a long time down in Texas. We'll have a few friends from the Northeast stop in after that to talk about a competition that they're putting on and rebranding up in the New York area called Fight for the Fittest. And then Bella Martin will be joining us for the last part of the show to answer some questions and just talk all things semifinals and what she's got going on. So thank you guys for being here. Jake, nice to see you. Slater, yes, looking forward to competing at BCS this year. There we go. So
yeah,
you and I have just recently met, actually, and had a chance to get to know each other a little bit. BCS Classic is something that has been on my radar. I've seen it. In fact, one of the questions Peter just asked on his show was, who is the biggest, I think, external contributor in the CrossFit ecosystem that does not work at CrossFit headquarters? And someone picked Rich Froning as one of their answers for that, which certainly is an acceptable answer. And obviously with the involvement he's had down there has been part of the reason why I've seen what's been going on. But you've been at it for a long time before Rich had ever had anything to do with the BCS Classic.
Yeah, man. It's crazy because I was at the CrossFit Games as a spectator in 2010, and I watched Rich Froning, compete. And honestly, at that point, it sounds crazy, but that's when I really started. I followed him from sectionals. I competed personally at sectionals. And then I competed at regionals in the South Central with Chase Ingram, and then did not make it, but went to watch the games in Carson. And I remember watching Rich win his sectional, and then he won the regional, and it was like, who is this guy? And then at the games, and then he just demolished. I mean, he was crushing everyone. And then at the very end, as everybody knows, he ended up getting second. But that was kind of, I think, the beginning of me starting to kind of really follow Rich. And not sure if this is where we're going to go, but technically, what led me to reaching out to him in 2019, I had been putting on this competition 10 years, and I had kind of shifted the focus from what I would call more, instead of just keeping it like a CrossFit competition, which is kind of what it had been, is shifting more towards a festival, and a festival that would really highlight the three values that I believe are for me, the pillars in my life, but also the pillars at my gym. I own now 2 affiliates in Texas and College Station. And for us, family, fitness, and faith is really what we're all about. Our mission is building better people by cultivating a stronger family, fitness, and faith, right? And how we do that is the community that is created at the gym. And all that BCS Classic is just a one weekend expression of that. And who would you want to come to this event other than Rich Froning, right? That's the guy. And so it was really awesome. He came out the first year, and we not only did he come down initially, I just wanted him to come down and actually share his story and share his testimony. And then it turned into, well, hey, if somebody needs a partner, I would love to work out. And so he basically agreed to partner with somebody. It's a partner competition. And so we created a fundraising opportunity, and we raised almost $30,000. It was like 27,000 some odd dollars for Ronald McDonald Charities. And a guy named John Devlin, who had started his fitness journey back in like 2012 after watching Rich Froning do Diane at regionals, got to be his partner. And so that was like honestly,
Yeah.
it's like a kid who's like always loved Peyton Manning getting to play 7-on-7 with Peyton Manning. It was like really cool for this guy to become Rich's partner. And now, 6 years later, Rich has come back. They RV'd down here one year. Rory came, like their whole crew, and then now Rory competes, Rich competes. Angelo is Rich's partner now, and it's just become a really, really fun weekend. It's not. I tell people it's not like this high caliber, what I'll call like a sectionals, or I'm sorry, now I guess whatever you call the thing, semis now. It's not one of those. It's honestly, we got 1,080 athletes, and they are just representing the sport of CrossFit very well. So we started 15 years ago. We had 81 athletes sign up. I remember because I probably called every single one of them and begged them to compete. And now it's just turned into something way bigger than that. So
Man, that was a trip down memory lane for you, I'm sure. Some of those things you're talking about. I got to ask because a lot of people, or some people, had the opportunity to see the tennis stadium in Carson this year through the semifinal lens, and I spoke to a very select few individuals who were there that were also at the games in 2010, and they just described the environment there in that first year. Do you remember like how full or empty that stadium was?
okay, it was empty. It filled up like over the weekend, but not much. We didn't even use the soccer stadium, right? So that wasn't even on the radar. I do remember though. This is like, if I'm honest, like a goosebump moment for me. And I'm 27, like I'm 42 now. So this was 15, or however many years ago. We are getting ready for the final heat of Amanda. And the way they did the heats was, because nobody had done one event yet, was all the people who won their regionals and the former games champ. So it's like anybody who followed CrossFit back then, like probably, the people who loved it so much, it was Miko, Kalipa, Spieler, Froning. And I remember just like getting ready for Amanda, and it was just like the butterflies and the tennis stadium was practically, there wasn't many people there, and it was like the event of the night. Another big memory for that weekend for me was, sounds crazy, but it was like when they did the track and they did like the long Helen workout. I remember thinking like, dude, this is so cool. Like they've got a rig on the track, it was, again,
Yeah, well,
compared to now.
we see stuff like that all the time now. But Patrick and I were talking about it the other day. Is that the CrossFit Games, they rolled out everything new, and so putting a rig on a
Yep.
track was, you may see a pull up bar at your high school track. Actually, that's where I did Murph for the first time, was something like that, but certainly not a rig with however many lanes they lined up there. And now
Yep.
I see stuff from all over the world, and talking about in Russia and in Australia, and look, Wadapalooza is going to have a competition just like the CrossFit Games did on Huntington Beach this year. So
Yep.
that's pretty cool to hear some of those memories
I
from
thought
that
it,
past year.
and that was the year they did the sandbag, like they with the wheelbarrows.
The original
So it
one.
was like,
Yeah.
oh, dude, I remember, and you had, dude, I was sitting back. I had like my legs out in front of the seats in front of me, like basically all the room in the world, and just watching these guys like wheelbarrow weight from once, or bags of sandbags from one side to the other, and then you have that moment where it's like that guy's toppled over, and you're just like, you feel terrible for him, but it was fun, man. It was awesome.
I got a couple other questions based on what you said, but before we get off track too far, um, the one of the main reasons we wanted to kind of hurry up and get you on the show is because the qualifier for the BCS is still happening this week. It runs through Sunday, and the qualifier for your competition is different than some other competitions because of, well, basically where the money goes. So, do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. So the 100% of the registration goes towards Mayhem Mission. And this is a huge driver for us to encourage people to, even if you don't plan to want to come to College Station for the event in August, although we'd love to have you, take on these workouts. I mean, they're awesome workouts. Rich programmed them. They are hard. Like anybody who's listening that is always, CrossFitters just love pain. So it's like if you want to be tested and you want to, I did the row one today. It's a 500-meter row, 50 burpees over the rower, 500-meter row, and it just leaves you kind of lying on the ground. There was a bunch of people at my gym that they redid it. I did it for the first time, but there's 4 tests, so you could easily knock them out before Sunday, and then see where you end up on the leaderboard. So I highly encourage you. It's teams of 2, so you would have to. It's $40, right, for both of you. So it's like the Open, $20 per person, and then you just register. And my goal this year is for us to write a check for $40,000 to Mayhem Mission. So every registration goes towards that. Like we don't keep any of that registration. It's 100% in Mayhem Mission. For those of you that don't know, they meet a lot of the needs domestically and globally. And when there's tornadoes in Kentucky or when there's been relief from fire, like Mayhem Mission really tries to help meet a lot of needs in USA, but they also go and do work internationally, globally. They fight human trafficking. They help with water. I went on a mission trip to Nicaragua. That was a really cool experience. And we helped the CrossFit gym there. And I've been running my affiliate for a long time. And at the end of the day, everybody's doing the same thing, right? But here's the biggest eye-opening. They don't have the resources from, I have a level 3 certification, for example. The nearest level 1 in-person certification for them would probably be, Guatemala. And for us to be able to go down there and help educate, I worked with coaches for the whole week and kind of help them with their processes, with their coaching development, with their systems. And so they just don't get that. And so it's like the unique way that Mayhem Mission has not only helped collaborate with other nonprofit ministries, but also just the heartbeat behind what they do is why we keep wanting to write a bigger check to them every year. And it's very rare for them to actually get a check, because most of the time, like they wrote $100,000 check for Mayhem for Freedom to raise money for human trafficking a few months ago. So they're always doing the writing of checks and giving. And so for us, this is a unique way that we can write a check back to them so that they can continue to do what they do, because they function just like any other nonprofit.
So if you have the chance and you want to sign up and do the workouts, or even sign up and not do the workouts or some of the workouts, it's going to a good cause. While you were talking earlier, you mentioned those 3 pillars in your life that you came across. And for people who are pretty plugged into the CrossFit ecosystem and have maybe been following Rich's journey in general for a while, a few years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I feel like now, Mayhem Mindset came on the scene over there. Jim Hensel has been a guest on their podcast over the years, and he's worked with Rich and a lot of other people there to kind of get them into a similar area where they can kind of identify their core values, absent of work or sport or anything else, and kind of find out what is truly at their core of their being. But it sounds to me like you had some of those things in place before Mayhem Mindset was ever a thing.
I've actually met Jim and I love his program. I had a really close friend go through it. And, I will say that the having things that you consider to be very important to you help mostly when everything, you know, collapses and when life gets really difficult. And I can say that in different areas. And I'm 42. Anybody who's listening to podcasts, I don't care if you're 25 or heck 15, you've gone through a season or a time in your life when life gets really hard. And it really comes down to like, what are the things that are your anchors and what are the things that get you through that? Um, and for me, it's those three, right? And I always tell people, I don't want to make one sound more than the other, because if I'm completely honest, like they all three are incredibly important. My family is extremely important to me. My faith is extremely important to me, and my fitness is extremely important to me. And I know that like a lot of people who are, what we would call your faith-based individuals would be like, well, Charlie, it's obvious, faith. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But at the end of the day, like they're all 100%, like if my family's not dialed in, like it affects my faith, it affects my fitness. If my fitness isn't dialed in, it affects my family, it affects my faith. And so for me, it's like, man, those are the three pillars. Like I can't even think of a better way to say it than like that's the air that I breathe every day, and my life is just an expression of those three pillars. And that's why there's no separation from gym to home or from event to home or gym. It's just like anybody who knows me, that's what I sweat out every day.
And it seems, very natural for you to talk about that now. Was it a difficult process to identify those things when you were kind of maybe going through that seeking phase?
Yeah, I think I maybe, I seem to be a person that, like, if I observe myself, that goes all in. And so sometimes I think it's almost like pushing people to do CrossFit too much. Like we all know, like if you start doing CrossFit and then eventually it's like everything you talk about, and pretty much anybody who you meet, you're talking about CrossFit. Well, it can almost become like, hey, tone it back a little bit. And I think now I've learned. Rich said it really well when he came down to the first BCS Classic in 2019. We did a Q&A, and I really it's actually out there on YouTube or somewhere. But what I really took away from that, because I asked him a very similar question, and he said, I'm more of like a lead by example guy. And if you really observe Rich over those years that he was on team, he's not like going to come and like pep you up. Like if you
He
train with
might he might
him,
pray you up though.
he won't even do that, honestly. What he will do is he will just keep working and he will just keep going. And in that, it it makes you either level up or get out. And I think that goes the same way with your faith, right? Especially like nobody wants to get told that they are either living a certain way that's not in line with the way they're supposed to be, or that they should believe something that maybe they have a difficult time believing. And therefore it's just like the more you can just like take ownership for your, like for me, that's important, right? It doesn't mean it has to be for you. And if anything, if I try not to overly encourage or push people towards any of these areas. But where it happens to, it's kind of like a consultation at the gym. Like when somebody starts saying like, I need to lose 60 pounds. Well, guess what? I can share fitness, and I can share the impact that working out will have and eating healthy. But the last thing people want you to do when you go to Chipotle is to walk around and tell them, hey, that's an unhealthy bowl. Hey, that could be a lot better if you didn't have this and that. And that's kind of, I think, what happens when we kind of go too much into our values, basically being preaching to others how they should live. And more so that if you come to BCS Classic, for example, it's not like you are going to be told that you should do these three areas, but you're going to walk away and you're going to be inspired in those three areas. And honestly, after the weekend, you're going to say, this was the most life filled experience that I've ever had at a CrossFit competition. This was very different from any other CrossFit competition that I've ever been to.
And I have not ever been to the BCS Classic. I am going this August, but I've heard similar sentiments from people who've been there. I did want to ask you, because there's oftentimes there's conversation, especially with people that I interact with, about what does it mean to run a successful CrossFit competition? I think we hear a lot of the conversation in the media space about maybe on the financial side that it's difficult to run profitable CrossFit competitions, but there's obviously there's other factors that are important. Clearly, if you can't make ends meet at the competitions, it's hard to keep it going. But you told me that this is going to be the 15th version of BCS Classic. And
Yeah.
so having, at least as much experience as almost anyone who's ever done it, what are the lessons that you've learned over those 14 years up to this point?
We could spend the rest of our time talking about this, but I'll try to condense it, and I'll try to give tips in areas that I wish I would have taken probably 10 years ago, or even anytime as I'm building BCS. So the tendency that I had in the beginning was to look internally at my gym, because I own a gym, and to say, hey, this coach or this particular individual who works for me already, let me put them in this area that I need help. And I ended up having a lot of what I would call my team be my gym staff. And that actually really wasn't good for me, because number one, it's more work for them. And it becomes not only a really long weekend for them, but it actually overflows into the gym. And as much as you might think it's like more opportunity or more, you trust these people, I found that when I looked outside, not necessarily outside of the gym, but outside of the staff, I looked at my
Hmm.
members actually. I looked at, people that used to work for me. So I have the way to run a successful competition is to have an amazing team of individuals. And the team that we have right now, we have been working together for a long time. I cannot take the credit for how the competition goes, because it would honestly be like not rightfully given to the right person. It is the team that works incredibly hard, all the way from, we'll call it the leadership, that goes all the way to anyone who would be volunteering. And so your competition is just a reflection of your leadership, because your leadership is what's going to attract the people to actually want to team up with you. And even if it's your first year or second year or third year and you don't have a lot to give them in terms of the finances. And I always say, I just met with my assistant director the other day, and if we're honest, like our judges, for example, judges is volunteers at BCS Classic, but we give them a $50 gift certificate, and they get a swag bag. And most of these local comps are not paying people anything. We give the $50 gift certificate just because we appreciate them. But if we're honest, that does not compensate them for the work that they're putting in, right? Like, they're judging all day on Saturday, and then on Friday we do one event. So we're rotating judges. They're doing it because they love the event, they love the sport, the community. Now, if you don't have the ability to give anything, because you do the math, like we're paying out a lot of gift cards and it's a line item, but at the same time, you might be your first year, you might be throwing, money at this thing and hoping that it turns into something. Man, appreciation goes a long way. Just like being organized and being a person of integrity and character goes a long way. Like being reliable, and you're cultivating, it's almost like running an affiliate, right? Like this is a leadership job. You're really like the leader, and you got to be somebody who's worth following to attract certain people. And so the competition is a reflection of your leadership. Now, I liked looking outside of the gym from my staff because it helped me separate the two. In other words, like when I'm in a staff meeting, like we just had a meeting for the gym, we're just talking. We literally did not even bring up BCS Classic, and we're in the middle of the qualifier. And it
Right.
was a 1 hour, because that's not what we need to be talking about. And if you try to do it in your gym, it's going to actually hurt your gym, because now everybody's talking about the event. Nobody's talking about new members, retention, stuff that we should be talking about. But you in your brain, you think it's a good idea. And here you are now the event happens and everybody is like burnt out and frustrated, and it hurts your culture. Compared to now, it's the two are separate. So that's probably one of the biggest things. Um,
I like
and
that a
then
lot. I mean, it's like we just came back from Syndicate Crown, and Wilson Pack is regarded as a really great competition organizer in the space as well, and he always speaks about his team right off the bat. And I think that um, the kind of affirmation I hear from you in that regard says a lot. I got two questions from some
yeah,
viewers here. They're not maybe the easiest. I don't know. We'll throw them at you before we let you go. So Kevin's says he trains at a commercial gym, and that's one of the problems about doing CrossFit at a commercial gym. I don't know if people sign up for comps like this. You've been around for a long time. What would you say to someone like that?
I would say work out at a CrossFit gym. Yeah, I don't understand the question, but
I think
definitely work. Yeah.
I think what he's trying to say is like, he wants to compete at a competition like this, but he doesn't have people at the gym to do it with. Do you have?
Oh yeah,
Do you
I
like
get
some
it.
way to
I
match him
get
up
it.
with somebody, or
Yeah.
maybe
No, I
find a
love it.
partner
I
for
love
him?
it. I love the question. Yeah. So we've actually, so there's a Gold's gym or a couple Gold's gym in the town, and there's like groups of people that do CrossFit at Gold's, and they come out to BCS Classic. And there's a lot of times people don't have a partner. And for us, we have a BCS Classic community Facebook group, and we can, post there, or somebody might say, hey, I'm looking for a partner, and they can find partners. If you're talking about just in general, any competition, I would say if I worked out, let's say I did CrossFit at a commercial gym, I would actually go to a CrossFit gym and I'd be like, hey, let's say it's a local throwdown. Hey, I want to do this competition. I need a partner. Is there any way you can, maybe like put it on your community page and find somebody to match me up with? I
So,
understand now.
yeah, Kevin. So Kevin, if you're still here, just go to that community page, maybe shoot a message there, and maybe find you a partner. You show up for the BCS Classic. Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the last one, Jake Chapman. How is one inspired regarding faith at the BCS Classic?
It's great. Yeah.
I
It's
know.
just like,
I know for me, I'm always questioning God why I'm doing this.
okay. I love this question.
Yeah.
I love this question because it's very similar to what I would say the same goes at BoomFit, which is my gym. The way faith works, in my understanding of it, is not Charlie doing this. If there's any impact that anybody has in this area of their life, it's because of the Holy Spirit, which is only a factor of God working in their life, right? If faith is moving through my gym in a way that many times I will never know about, it has more to do with the people here than it has anything to do with me saying something, communicating anything, making an announcement, writing anything on a board, because that's not how it works, right? So technically, it is just when you have the Holy Spirit through all the people at the BCS Classic, and obviously they're not there for a revival or for a spiritual weekend, they're there for a CrossFit competition. But it is moving through the event in conversations that I will never hear about. It is moving through the event in ways that I will never know. It is moving through the event not because I am saying, hey, this is about faith, but ultimately what I am doing, and the heart that I have and the prayer that I have, is that God, this is yours. This is for you to own, and this is not about Charlie, and this is not about, this is your, just like I do with the gym, right? It's like, I'm still, if I'm honest, how do I play a role? Guess what? We run on time. Hey, guess what? We have good judges. Hey, guess what? We communicate expectations very clearly. So there's no, because I'm held accountable to those standards, right? I need to make sure that as a competition director, that I'm running the event as if I'm running the CrossFit Games. And ultimately, the faith piece is not mine to own; it's God's to own. So I can just do my job, and then I know He'll do His job.
Yeah, that's a good question to a tough, good answer to a tough question. So Charlie, thank you for taking the time, man. I'm really excited to be down there in Texas this August 23rd and 24th is the live competition dates. Like he's talked about, Rich and the guys from Mayhem will be down there, and through B.Friendly Fitness, we'll be giving you guys more of an opportunity to see, all these things that Charlie has put in action over the last 15 years of doing this. If you missed it earlier, the qualifier is still going on this week. All of the proceeds, 100% of the registrations go straight to Mayhem Mission. So it's a unique way to contribute to something that's making a big impact in people's lives and still put yourself to the test in terms of some CrossFit challenges. So if you have a chance to sign up for that this week, it's going to a good thing. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate y'all. Can't wait to see you here in August.
Okay, take care, man.
All right, see ya. Bye.
Yeah. All right, PC, you're in charge of that. Sorry. All right, we're gonna smooth transition kind of over to Sam and Kelly joining us from. You guys are? Is it Long Island?
It is.
It is Long Island.
Okay, I knew it was in New York. I was trying to remember Long Island. And Bella is here. I know some people have been dying to see her.
I was hoping you were going to bring me on with Charlie. I was like, oh my gosh, I love Charlie.
I talked to Charlie. We talked about you yesterday for a minute. He had nothing nice to say.
I hope not. BCS is a great event. So if anyone's local, it's a good one. So.
But Sam and Kelly, I think we've probably started talking maybe like 18 months ago now. We've had a few conversations over that time period. Just going to give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves and fight for the fittest just off the bat for people who may not know what it is or who you are.
So we are an event based out of Long Island, New York. This is going to be our 4th year running. We started back in 2020 at a local gym as just kind of a local competition for individuals. The whole company is run by my husband, Sam, and myself. We did it as something fun for the community in the gym that we were at to start. And then it kind of took off from there. Since then, we've done, I think, 7 events. We've done teams of 4. We've done partners and we've done individual. This year, we decided to combine, and do one large event instead of the 3 smaller in a gym. And we're hosting September 28th and 29th for teams of 4 at Suffolk Credit Union Arena. So we have a large stage this time around. We have an indoor pool for our athletes. And we have Christian Harris programming all of our workouts.
Well timed.
And I remember when I first started talking to you guys, and one of the things that I liked is that, you guys are really passionate about this. Like I think Sam, one of the first things you said to me was like, we're not pros at this. This is just something we love to do. And I felt like, to me, that's been a consistent and powerful part of your, message and competitions.
Yeah. I mean, we're not affiliate owners. So, I mean, most of the competition event organizers usually come from that space where they start this in their affiliate and they build it out. Just like Charlie was talking about it, and Wilson and guys like that. Kelly's a teacher, I'm a PA, and this is kind of something that just we fell into, and something that we have enjoyed doing because we get to do it together and we get to do it with the community, and it's kind of just grown out of a love for doing it because it's a whole nother job.
Yeah, and Christian, welcome, by the way. Good to see you.
What's up, guys?
Hey, buddy.
Christian Harris, for those that don't know, man, you've done actually quite a lot in the sport. I think most people will know you through your achievements on the field of play, but, you've been a coach and a programmer for a long time and involved in the community in a lot of different ways. And I think that it's really good testimony to, what Sam and Kelly have put together up there, that you're so closely involved with the fight for the fittest. If you want to just share kind of what your experience is and what you're excited about for this year's event.
Yeah, it's been great synergy from the start of the competitions prior to when they hosted a couple at our gym to now at the Suffolk Credit Arena. It's grown tremendously. And for me, I think where I fit into this is that I kind of bring that expertise of being someone that's been in at the games level, but also just in the sport for such a long period of time. I've seen, from regionals back in 2012 all the way to the current day and age, the evolution of how the sport has changed, the way that programming has changed. And, it's fun to be able to bring that expression to their competition and, give people something to test themselves with.
And this year, as Sam and Kelly said, they've done teams of 4. And my understanding is is it 2 men and 2 women on the teams?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's, there have been times that I've gone to CrossFit competitions, even during, I specifically remember during some of the sanctionals, that I would go there and I would see the programming for the team competition and feel like, not that the workouts were bad, but that it was like just a kind of a miss, whether the time domain or the stimulus just seems to be a pretty difficult thing to program well for a team of 4 competition. And, I would say, Christian, based on the things you've just said, you have a pretty good pedigree for being able to do that. But what are some of the things that you look for when you're writing workouts for a 2 men, 2 women team of 4?
Yeah, great question. I think that there needs to be a way to test the athletes where they're not, one, resting for too long, but it also tests team chemistry from being able to do synchronized movements to not being able to hide an athlete. So it really, for me, a team workout or a team competition is going to put all of your athletes to the test and see who has the best chemistry throughout all 4 teammates, not just kind of a one-man show with 3 other people that are just kind of tagging along.
And this year, Sam or Kelly, what options are available in terms of divisions for people to compete?
Right. So we have a scaled, an RX, and an elite division. And the programming, was part of the tricky part, was programming workouts in similar time domains that cover different levels of skills, but also match stimulus. So, we did, and Christian spent a ton of time on these workouts, and then me going back to him, and then us testing it, and then we go back and forth for a long time, trying to nail these out the best way we could. Because, for example, this first workout, the scaled athletes are not swimming. So we didn't want to just throw another workout at them just to fill in the space. We wanted it to have a similar feel, time domain stimulus into it. And we do that throughout all the workouts. So it may have created a bit more of work from us from a programming standpoint, but I think it helps to give all the teams in each division a similar feel throughout the weekend.
And these are the workouts for the competition in September.
Correct.
So you guys made a decision to roll those out early so people can take a look at them and see what's coming their way.
Yeah, we were advised by someone that we should give everyone as much time as possible. That was you who said that, by the way. To give everyone as much time as possible, as much information as possible, as early as possible, and we've tried our best to do that.
And are there still opportunities for people if they want to compete or participate in September?
Yeah, registration is still open. There are spots available in each of the 3 divisions. So sign up. Registration is through Conquest Events. So you can find us on there, and you can even check our website at fftfcompetitions.com.
Yeah, and the elites are starting to, now that, seasons are over for some people, they're starting to look for their off-season competitions. We have a good cash prizes for the elites and the RX. So they're starting to roll in now too, which is nice to see.
Yeah, and there are not a ton of really a lot of competitions available for that 2-man, 2-woman team of 4, and there are often teams that will come off. We hear about it all the time on the individual side. Someone finishes semifinals and they're like come up short of their goal. They don't make it to the games this year, and they're looking for things to do in the off season. On the teams of 4, a lot of those teams, they'll end up going and doing other competitions, but they're usually not teams of 4 with their team competitions. So I really like that this is available. Obviously, it's in the Northeast. There's not, back in the day, there were some big competitions in the Northeast, but there aren't a ton up there. these days, or so it seems. So I like that option's available. So if you are a team, or if you know a team of 4 that is maybe close to the games or close to a semifinal and looking to have a chance to refine your skills in that setting, obviously with the the programming from someone who's done it at the highest level, this could be a really good opportunity for someone like that or a team like that.
Thank you.
Christian, any other insights that you want to give into if someone was thinking about doing this competition, special thing you're bringing to this year's edition of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of touched on some points about it. One, being in the Northeast, there's really not a ton of opportunities out there for anyone in the Northeast to compete in something like this. So I personally really like it for that, not being biased, but also I think the workouts are going to be a great test of fitness, especially if you're in the elite and RX division. You're going to get a chance to swim. Not many competitions that are off season that you're going to be able to do that, with the exception of maybe like a Wadapalooza. And especially this early on in the season, or in the off season, rather. So it's really a good litmus test just to kind of get some, beginning feelers out there before you guys start to get into your, dedicated off season training. Many times by the time you get to Wadapalooza or any competitions that you end up hitting in January, you kind of have your pieces set, but it could also be too late at that point if you're looking to make any additions to your team. So this is a great way to get that done way early on. And if you feel like your team is just really not gelling, you can have that opportunity to maybe make some adjustments.
Yeah, and I know that in some instances, there's affiliates that they know they might have enough good athletes there to potentially make 2 teams, but they're not sure of maybe the best chemistry or the best people to match up. So this could be a chance to, give a trial, send 2 teams out there, see how it goes, come back, reevaluate. But I think it's great. I mean, like I said, Sam and Kelly and I have been talking for over a year as they've kind of gone through some different versions of what they thought might be best to offer for their community up there. And as you see, they're organized. They've got everything's ready to go. It's there for you to find the information. If you're curious about this competition, check out for sure the Fight for the Fittest on Instagram. They will get back to you. Christian doesn't need any accolades from me to know that it's going to be a high level of programming. So we wanted to just take a chance to share with you guys, because I really do think what I said earlier, that the passion that Sam and Kelly have brought to this is unique. They're not wrong. A lot of people that are running competitions are coming out of the affiliate mindset, and they came at it from a pretty unique perspective a few years ago and have continued to be motivated to keep it going and keep advancing what they offer up there.
Thanks, Brian.
And thank you for all your help, with everything that you've done with us behind the scenes and kind of helping us refine stuff so we can try to hold a certain standard when we run this competition. That's meant a lot to us. Thank you.
Wow. Good people. Happy to do it for you guys. Thanks for taking the time to come on here today. Christian, thank you for making time to share a little bit about your contributions to this competition. And hope that you guys will either go and check it out or mention it to a friend that you think may have some interest in what these guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll
Thanks.
talk to you guys soon.
Bye, guys.
See you, Christian. All right. Well, really appreciate you guys giving us a chance to do that. I think that it is important to hear from competition directors, because, we see these competitions, and I think in some of the ways that we often take for granted what the athletes are able to do, we can take for granted how difficult it is to put on something like that. And although I've just recently met Charlie, and I've known Kelly and Sam for well over a year now, in both instances, I hope you guys are able to see, the passion, the excitement, and the work that goes into putting on a good event. But nobody came here for those guys.
Here's
Whatever.
so here's the
Tell
thing.
her. Yeah, tell your
Here's the
Charlie
thing.
story.
So BCS was actually the first ever competition I ever did when I started CrossFit. I did with one of the guys from my gym. Our team name was Barbie and Ken, because his name was Ken, and it just obviously makes sense. And it was so much fun. And so I've known Charlie for years, and then living in College Station, moving to staying in Texas for a long time. Charlie is actually a huge part of my CrossFit journey. So, and it was also not necessarily one of the first events, but one of the events that I did when I started doing CrossFit commentating and things like that. So Charlie's got a huge place in my heart for all things my journey.
I think he
Love that.
said was the first like MC job you did there in 2019?
It was one of them. Yeah, it was one of them. It was so fun.
And now,
okay, Bella, 30 seconds. Do a 30-second pitch on why you should do the BCS up and do the BCS Classic going now.
Why you should do the BCS Classic? Okay, do it because it's for charity, and there's never an excuse to not do something for charity. The workouts are always really fun. The competition is actually a lot more intense than you think it's going to be. So it's not just this local throwdown. There's teams that have gone to semifinals. There's athletes that have gone on and done the games. It is hands down one of my favorite events of the year. And if I still lived in College Station, it would be solidified on my calendar forever and ever. Boom.
Alright.
You're welcome, CrossFit. You never know. I don't want to take that from someone. Maybe he was really pretty. You never know.
We need to clip that and use that.
Well, Bella, you've come a long way from emceeing at the BCS Classic, and for people who were, oh my goodness, Patrick,
that wasn't my first year. That wasn't my first year. That's last year. That's 2023. Tony, he was at Syndicate, and Miranda, she was with us at Waza this year for her first time, and then fingers crossed she might be joining us at MFC. So good people all around.
And she got married recently, didn't she?
Engaged. I think I don't think she's been married yet.
I think they might have got married.
Good for her. I didn't send a present, so hopefully they haven't gotten married yet.
I don't know. I saw pictures on Instagram and she looked like she was in a wedding dress. I think they're on their honeymoon. I don't know. But
we should probably ask her about it. Me and Tony.
Anyway, and for people who watched the semifinals this year, you know, they would have had a chance to see you at the Torian Pro, which is a competition that you've you know, loved and grown very, very close with everyone that's involved there, but in a little different capacity this year.
Yes.
And then also at the Syndicate Crown. And then also at the Syndicate Crown. So, and in both roles, you had the chance to do the sideline reporting and interviews as part of the broadcast. And Jake doesn't care at all. He just wants to know if you're going to Rogue.
Oh, are you going to Rogue? There's actually an event in New Zealand that is the same time. So currently I'm planning on New Zealand. If Rogue decides they want to bring me, then I'll have to make a call.
I had a similar deal like that with Roger over in Norway, because his competition this year is on the 25th, 6th, and 7th. And he goes, I want to bring you this year. I want you to do the commentary there, but you have to promise me if Rogue offers you a job that you turn me down.
It's one of those things. It's a growth opportunity, and anybody, you know, that gets that opportunity, they're not going to say no.
So just off the bat, you know, big picture, doing that job at this style of competition, does this smile say it all?
Oh, absolutely. I think it was one of those things. I think Torian was ultimately very special for a lot of reasons. I think getting that 4th spot changed the story for a lot of people. And I know we're talking to some of them this weekend. So I think there was a little bit more fight, and then not having some of those bigger names, not necessarily did that diminish the field's talent. I think it just gave everybody a little bit more fire to say, okay, this is my turn. And so we had that, but also we were lucky enough to have the opportunity to actually call every single heat. Rookie said it 1,000 times on the broadcast as a running joke. We did every single heat of every single event for 3 days. And it's not necessarily a feasible thing for what we were doing in the US, just based on, you know, advertising requirements and everything like that. But we were able to do that. And I think that community was so grateful for that, because everybody had their name called, all 200 athletes, every single team, every single individual. We shared at least part of a story that involved all of them. And the families that watched that, I mean, they've already reached out to all of us, and it means the world to them. And that's why we do what we do, not for us, for them. So that's why, I mean, that was special for us.
Yeah, that last thing that you said is, it's one of probably the coolest parts about the jobs that you and I have had the privilege to do is when we hear from athletes or their families or their gym communities that are just appreciative of being able to watch if they're not able to make it there on site.
Yeah, I mean, it goes a long way. They're doing this, for them, and they're also doing this, and their friends and family have been there for them and with them through the whole journey. So it just, I mean, they deserve it. They deserve their names to be shared and pronounced correctly, and then they deserve people to know who they are. Especially at this level, I think when it gets to a local competition or some of these other events that are live streamed and you don't get touch on everyone's name, it's one of those, I'm going to try my best, but if I don't, don't hate me for it. But at the semifinal level, everyone's name should be called.
Yeah, fly in here with me today.
Hey,
PC. Yeah, go ahead, PC.
Hey, Bella. I mean, I met Torian. I remember the first time you got invited to Torian, and how ecstatic you were, and since then you've become a staple. How awesome was it that, I mean, not that they gave you a chance, but it was like your first opportunity. I mean, obviously you did the open prior to this, but not in this capacity, this stage. How much did it mean to you that it was at Torian that you were able to do this?
I think it's one of those events that it keeps coming back, and it makes my journey feel a lot more full circle because it continues to build upon what we're doing. It actually felt really strange this year because I've grown so close with the MC crew there. And so coming out there, I don't get to play with them anymore and like be on the floor with them, and the dynamic is different and they're missing me. And every single time they'd come over, like, if you want to get on, like, jump on the mic, it's okay. And then I have a new boss, and Wayne is amazing. He is the smartest. I have Maud, who is kind of my boss while I'm on the floor, making sure we have everything we need and pulling athletes. It was a completely different experience, but it was one that I'm grateful that they trusted me with, because they trusted me to make sure everything on the floor was right and everything on the floor was fun and flowing. And then now they're trusting me with telling their stories. And I think that just shows how having relationships with these events and with these athletes and with, the community, it actually matters. Nobody wants to just have someone come in, do a job and leave, and it doesn't matter to them. The impact of this event, I mean, I think about this one all year round.
Gold
Obviously,
standard or Gold Coast standard?
Oh, look at that.
It's like an hour north of or I think it's north of Gold Coast, but I like that. That's good.
I mean, we've talked about for a while, I think probably going on when you first started this journey, about how hard it is to kind of break into this world, especially at the games level. I mean, we all talk about, Brian talks about it notoriously as well. I've talked about it. And then, how much do you think you being involved with Torian, giving some American girl, flying her across, spending all this money when they could have sourced this locally, how much do you think that played a part in them showing that trust that you talk about played into your success this year, where these opportunities that we didn't think would open up, or you didn't think were going to open up, it happened, pretty quickly?
Yeah. I mean, I think everything with what I've done with my job has all come very quickly. If you told me, 3.5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, that this is what I would be doing, I would have no idea how to get here at all. I wouldn't know what it would take. But I think with this event and, the trust that not only CrossFit has put in with me, but also Torian Pro, I think it's because they know that I genuinely care.
Mm-hmm.
And I genuinely want to do what's best for and by everybody. So, and that looks a little bit different. I think that's, me staying involved with what's going on in the community out there, even though it's on the other side of the world. It's okay, well, what's going on the rest of the year? Torian Pro is one weekend. Well, what's happening the rest of the 12 months of the year out there? I try to stay involved with it as much as I can. And then I also try to keep up with all of the athletes there. And so something that I, really try to do when it comes to my job is, okay, well, I get to know all of these people on a personal level. And so I can actually share their story, and they trust me to share their story because they know that I have their best interest at heart. I'm going to do what is going to be best for you. And that shows. And I think at least so far, the community and CrossFit has said, we like that you do that.
Yeah, and that definitely showed, especially at Torian Pro, when you interviewed Peter Ellis, who we'll have on Sunday night. You know, I think I texted you immediately afterwards, like, you know, telling you good job, and you texted me back saying, I don't know how I kept it together, but you know, you've been able to see this young boy grow up to this man, and now he punched his ticket, and you know so much, and you've been invested in him and his career path. But how much did that mean to you that you got to share that moment, to ask him those questions, to get that response from him, and then, you know enough about him to get him to tear his shirt off?
Well, so there's a couple things there, which is why, I was actually really excited to do that. So with Pete, I mean, if you know Pete, you know he cares so much about making his coach proud, and he's very vocal about that. And it's not often that people are so emotional with their journey. And so knowing this, I actually was, see Pete all weekend. I'm like, we're gonna talk. Don't like trust me, we're gonna have a talk. And every single time he's like, I'm ready, I'm so ready for this. We're gonna do this. And he's got such a great spirit about him. And so when he made it, I knew in that moment that he was going to be really emotional. And I was excited for him to do that because I think that's who he is. That's Pete. That's Pete Ellis. That kid's going to the games. And I think the best thing is, he rips his shirt off. If you're at Down Under, I don't know how many shirts he tore up at Down Under, which is so funny. And it's one of those, you had to be there to actually understand it, but it's kind of part of his persona now. And so I learned that he actually signed with LSKD that weekend. And I know the shirt he's wearing. And you always want people to have an opportunity to show who they are and show their personalities. And I know he's got this great personality. And so seeing that shirt in my mind, I was like, I actually don't know if that shirt's rippable, but we'll find out. I don't know if he can or not, but hopefully he can figure it out. And I looked at him and he went for it. So I'm proud of him. He crushed it. And he deserves all of the praise and all of the brand new t-shirts for that one. Look at that. You can't even rip it halfway.
If there's anyone who knows that, anyone who knows their CrossFit clothing, it's going to be Bella for sure.
Yeah.
It honestly would be trying to rip one of our new Northern Spirit jerseys too. Those are so thick. If he had been wearing one of those, I actually don't think it would have been feasible to rip it in half. But I think everyone, athletes, parents, the entire community was so proud of him, and he did it. And so for more than anything, I'm grateful that he got to share that with, thousands of people.
Yeah. So unlike other trips, you jump out and head back over to this side of the world. Yeah. How was that?
I actually didn't hear what you said. Your audio cut out, and me and Brian had this look of, oh no.
That's right. Brian, go ahead.
What was the question?
I didn't get much more than her, but I think he was going to ask a question about the difference between doing it in Torian Pro, where you have such a history, such a connection with the athletes and the audience there, compared to doing it at the Syndicate Crown, which is, a very different. There's a lot of things different about it, from the broadcast team that you're working with to the venue, and integrating with maybe competition organizers that you haven't worked that closely to before. And it's not that you don't know these athletes. You've worked with many of them and worked at competitions with many of them, but that intimacy that you have with the athletes in Australia is unique and special to you. So making that transition from Torian to Syndicate Crown, pros, cons, similarities, differences.
I think they were different approaches to different events. I think the approach that I took to Torian was a lot more individualized. I was able to pick and choose specific elements of stories and athletes that I really wanted to highlight. Whereas with Syndicate, it's a lot of the heavy hitters and the big names that people know. And so finding things that people don't already know about them is a little bit more challenging, but also telling them information that is still interesting is different, because everyone knows about Tia, everyone knows her story. And so you can't always just ask someone, well, did the strategy work for you? Because that gets really boring. And especially when, you have an athlete like Tia who wins all the time, kind of trying to figure out what the heck we're supposed to talk about all weekend. It's a little bit different. Whereas at Torian, we were allowed to really pull whoever we wanted to talk to and talk to them about whatever. But what I think was really special about Syndicate was leading up to it, a lot of the athletes were very vocal in different ways on social media. And so, as someone who I wouldn't say I lurk on the internet, but I'm not always in the comment section telling people that I'm watching, but I'm watching. And so, being able to watch a lot of these athletes have a little bit of banter going into it, just about a bunch of different things. I would say Jason and Dallin, the two of them, their dynamic is so fun to watch, especially just virtually. So I was really grateful to be able to show that in an interview and let them be themselves and let them be silly. We don't have as much, creative flexibility when it comes to doing things with CrossFit, especially because it was on ESPN. So we had very limited windows of what we could talk about. But I was trying my best to always have something that was, okay, this is going to be really memorable for you. So when it came to the guys, we were able to do that. And then between Dallin and Roman, that finish, I mean, we didn't know who we were going to talk to in that moment. And they said, bring them both. And I said, okay, well, best case scenarios, maybe they talk a little bit of smack and then it's a good weekend for the rest of the weekend. And that's exactly what happened. So that was fun to kind of be part of the, catalyst of a little bit of a rivalry between them. And then when for Haley, it was her comeback. And I had messaged her before and I said, hey, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable sharing stuff this weekend, because the last thing I would ever want is someone to feel that they're ready to come back and then me ask them something that they are not ready to share. And so she told me she was ready and she was comfortable. And that to me was her putting her trust in me. And I want to do right by Haley for the weekend. And getting to talk to her about Star Wars and seeing her light up and share that her nails had lightsabers on them and getting to just show her personality, that's what I want to do. And that to me was, I think that's what she deserved. And so it was my spin on, okay, yeah, you're really fit. I already know you're fit. You've always been fit, but who are you as a person? And so that's what I really wanted to kind of focus on with the limited time that I was able to. And hopefully people watching, hopefully they, they caught that and they appreciated that.
PC, I think, also has had a chance that weekend to talk to Haley about Star Wars. You haven't released that one yet, have you?
I haven't yet, but we have so much stuff coming out. A few beginning alerts, but Chad's been working on the vlogs, and we got a bunch of that stuff up. But yeah, it's pretty cool, especially since a new Star Wars miniseries came out a couple weeks ago. So
yeah,
Bella, do you know that Chad was doing a vlog that weekend?
I kept seeing the camera, and I think it's funny because he'd have the camera in my face, and I think sometimes I say really ridiculous things, not even on purpose, or I don't think I have like a resting bitch face, but I might. I just might. So I'm sure you'll find out as you're scrolling through.
That doesn't look like
I'm serious. I'm in the zone.
to me.
That's my coach in the background too. We both look really tired.
I think you look focused there. CrossFit had a question earlier. How many people do you have in your ear as a sideline reporter? Is it something that took getting used to? Is there a talkback feature? The technical side of doing that job on site for people who don't know?
That's a great question. So I can hear pretty much everything. So I have either it was Eric when I was at Syndicate, or I had Wayne in my ear, and they're the ones that are making sure I know where I'm going and what I'm doing and when. And I can also hear the commentators. So I can hear either Jeremy or Sean. I can hear Adrian. I can hear Pip. So I am aware of the conversation that's going on at all times. So it gets really, I don't know, kind of tricky, because in one ear, I'm listening to everything that's on the floor. I'm listening to the environment. I'm listening to the MCs. I'm listening to the athletes and what they're saying. Then I'm also listening to the conversation that's in my head. And when I was in Australia, it was kind of funny because obviously they have Australian accents. And I just had Aussie slang and Aussie jokes just rolling in my head. And I told the boys, I said, it's kind of nice having Adrian and Sean in my head. Sean Woodland's voice to me, he is the Morgan Freeman of CrossFit voices. So having him in my head is pretty nice. I'll say that. So I think, there's a lot of voices in my head. And then I'm also trying to think of what I'm doing. So there's always someone talking to me. And then that way I can also enter the conversation. the talk back button is hilarious because things would happen or, someone would say something or there would be chaos and we didn't know what we needed. And I would just talk back to them. And a lot of times it was just jokes. At one point, I thought that I heard the song, I think it was Roxanne was playing on the loudspeaker and it was also in my head. And I was asking everyone around me if they could hear it. And they decided they were going to tell me they couldn't hear it. So I thought it was just in my head. And then I use a talkback button to just sing along. It's a long weekend, but I like having people in my head. It's fun.
And then, you mentioned the integration with ESPN, and they give you, my understanding is they give you pretty specific time windows that you have to hit, whether it's for a hit on the floor or with an interview. Is that, first of all, is it stressful at all? And second of all, how do you prepare, best to try to make sure you're staying within the parameters allotted, especially when it's with athletes and you don't know how long they're going to talk for?
So it's for Syndicate, I will say, I wish we could have had more time because there's a lot more that I think we could have gotten out of the athletes if we had more time. For the interviews, I had Rafi or Eric in my head and they were saying, okay, you have time for one more question. So I always have typically 3 to 5 questions prepared. And if I have the time, we'll go for them. If we don't have the time, I'll pick and choose my favorite ones and we'll use the other ones later if we get to it. So if an athlete is long-winded, we'll typically get between probably 2 questions. If they're on the shorter side, maybe 3 questions. If they're not chatty at all, they're just we get out of there. It's fine. When it comes to hits on the floor, the first day, we were, running pretty close to time, but we needed to shorten it a little bit. So on the second day, we shortened them a little bit. And I think, there is so much that I wish we could share about athletes, about events, about movements, everything that if we had more time, it'd be awesome. But picking and choosing what we actually are going to talk about it's tough sometimes.
Big fan in the comments here. Yeah. That's a topic that gets brought up a lot of, fans, media, whomever that are watching from home, and they're critical about the number of athletes, the number of storylines that do or don't get told during a competition weekend like that. And now we've heard these kind of 2 different balances of that you experienced in just 2 weekends, right? At the Torian Pro, there was this freedom to do it the way that they wanted, and therefore they could tell at least a part of more stories. And then at the Syndicate Crown, there's a lot more kind of at stake. You're working with ESPN. This is a huge thing for CrossFit to have that, relationship back and to make sure that they're meeting the demands on that end. What would you say to the people that feel like maybe there's not enough stories about as many athletes during a competition weekend?
I do my best. I think.
Oh, and I don't think it's you. It's not you personally.
No, I think.
Yeah, it's your fault,
it's
Bella.
one of those things that we can always work on. I think it's one of those things we can always work on. I think being critical of ourselves when it comes to broadcast is always great. So if we're always talking about the same people, I can understand people, viewers' frustrations. I think a lot of times, people that are watching don't understand how much work actually goes into it. And they say, oh, I wish we could talk about this person more. Me too. Me too. I wish I could, spend 5 to 10 minutes talking about every single person. But I hope that they trust that, at least with me, I've done my due diligence when it comes to researching. So when I do have a choice on who I'm talking about, there's a reason. And it's not going to just be the top dogs all the time. I think an example, this is actually really funny. Joel Gadet and I, we chat all the time. If you've watched CrossFit before, you know who he is. And he used to go to 3 Kings CrossFit. And so before the event, he was like, oh my goodness, talk about my old gym. Talk about them. They're so cool. And so we were talking about it. I said, okay, fine. So they asked me who I want to talk about. And I said, let's talk about 3 Kings. So we did. And then I think it was last week in their email to their membership base, they said, hey, they talked about us on the Syndicate broadcast. And I think that's awesome. I'm just happy that they were listening because we gave them time. It wasn't a ton of time, but we cared enough to give them the time. And if anybody ever says, hey, this is my community, this matters to me, if I have an opportunity, I'm going to try my best to talk about it. Because it matters. People are listening.
Let's see here. T-Bird, welcome. No problem for being late, but glad you can make it when you can.
Hey,
We
Bella,
have
how was the transition in the travel from Torian and then immediately you had a couple days. You had a couple days, but it's probably a little bit different than
Yeah.
what you're used to.
So I've actually been home for 6 days in last month. So I left for Torian on the 17th, and then 2 days after I got home from Torian, I left for Syndicate, and then about 2 days after I got home from Syndicate, I left for Pit Team Throwdown. So I've been home for 6 days since May 17th, and I'll say I sleep on planes. I'm a sleeper, and so that's one of those things that I don't struggle with. I think if anyone else had my job and they couldn't sleep on planes, they'd probably be pretty messed up. But I at least try to sleep as much as I can, and I also work out a lot. And so when I got to Australia this time, I actually had the flexibility to train for the first few days. So I landed at 5 a.m. on Monday. I had some coffee, I had some breakfast, I trained that day, stayed up until 8 p.m. Go me.
huge.
And then the next day I got up, had breakfast, trained, did some stuff around town. Every single day I could, I trained. And so I trained from Monday through Thursday, and then we had Torian Friday through Sunday. The next day, travel day, get home, Tuesday, back in the gym. Leave again. I trained and then traveled again, traveled, trained the day that I was leaving from Syndicate, and then back in the gym. And so it's one of those things I think being able to force myself to stay disciplined is the only way I can survive. I'm not always motivated, but I'll do it.
V weighs in here. I'm grateful that Bella never or rarely begins a question with "What does it mean to you?" I think it's the most boring question and gets the same generic answers from every athlete. I wanted to bring this one up because I actually remember being in a conversation with Nikki Brazier and a few other people back at Dubai in 2019, I think, and she was talking about the process of forming questions for interviews, and I think that question or that she says here, what does it mean to you? Like, that's an easy thing to fall back on, especially if you have really limited time to prepare for an athlete. What I wanted maybe you to two things. One is, how much time do you usually have between when you find out who you're going to be talking to and when you're actually talking to them? And secondarily, what's the preparation process like, either prior to an event, a workout, or during the workout, to try to put yourself in the best position possible for that?
So I actually have my journal, so I can kind of show you. If you see me on a competition floor, you'll know that I'm always taking notes. And people joke and like, "Are you making notes about me?" The answer is absolutely yes. I am writing notes about you. And so what I do before competition weekends is I write down every single athlete I know about them, and then funny things about them that I could ask them if we had time to interview or if I was going to do a hit on them. So let me see if I can go back. So it kind of just starts with like this. And so I just keep taking notes on everything. And then this is what it looks like during the events. And I have who's doing well and what they're doing differently. So while I'm watching the event and analyzing what's going on, I'm writing down who I think we should talk to and what I would want to ask them. And then I can reflect back on other things about them that I already know that we can bring back. So if I know they're a parent and they're really proud of their kids, we can talk about that. And there's always something to be tied back to. So I'm always taking notes, and I typically have, for any given event, any given heat, I'll have about 3 people that I have questions prepared for on who we're going to talk to, and I just wait for someone to tell me who we're going to talk to. Or if I have my own choice, I'll pick whichever one I think is going to be the best interview.
Yeah, and it's I can say also from working with that broadcast team over many years now at a lot of different competitions, that there are conversations before competition even starts, at the start of every day, and so we have usually some direction of where we want to go and what kind of stories we want to tell, but always being conscious of the reality that the athletes create the stories, and once the 3-2-1 go happens, a lot of times things happen that we don't expect, we didn't see, or it's just like it kind of trumps whatever we thought was going to be the story of the event or the day. And so you have to have
Oh,
that
yeah.
ability to pivot on the fly.
I always have something prepared. And then you can kind of think of generic questions too. I mean, if it's someone that nobody knows or, someone you've already talked to before, you can always have questions that you can lean on. But I am prepared for whoever gets pulled into my.
I have to set the record straight on something here. Just so because these guys are talking about it. I am planning to be at the Rogue Invitational in I guess it's November this year. I will also be in Scotland in July. I'm arranging the travel for that right now for Watt on the Lock. So 2 trips to Scotland this year. And Jake, am I staying in your tent? Is this the one with the six other men? If that's the one, probably gonna pass.
That doesn't sound like a tent. That sounds like a Indian sweatshop, or what do they call those? Like the sweating tents.
Guys, did I go mute? Someone called me. And
Just right at
it
the last thing you said. That's what I was
it
for a
went
second.
mute.
I thought that PC had plagued your microphone or something like
No, it went mute. Someone called me and I'm like, stop it. My
Yeah.
phone's on do not disturb.
I wanted to, there's another comment here. This is a nice comment about Jeremy and how much he knows about the athletes there. He's comparing him to Sean, which he asked the question, is it a fair comparison to make? And adds this, that it makes it compelling, and appreciate the comment here of that. But you've worked with a lot of people in this sport, Bella, at a lot of competitions and a lot of different scenarios. I do want to give you a chance to speak about Jeremy, since you know him so well and what makes him unique and special over there. But I also was curious if you could just kind of weigh in on what it really takes to prepare well to go to one of these competitions and execute to the level that you want to, whether regardless of if you're an MC, sideline interview, color commentary, whatever it is.
Yeah. So I think it would be an unfair comparison to say either one is better than the other. I think
I agree.
they both actually have phenomenal and very similar preparation techniques. So what they both do is create a OneNote, and this is something that I've done as well. I also like writing it down because then I can reflect on it a little bit faster than scrolling. And so they make a OneNote of every single athlete, again, with all the information they know. And then before the event, if there's time, they'll send out a questionnaire to the athletes. So this is what Jeremy does, and this is how he knows so much about them, is he sends out a questionnaire to every single athlete to get information on them. He will talk to all 200 athletes before the competition begins. And so if there's anything that anybody would want to know about any of them, he knows everything. Like, he is the godfather. He knows too much. And so I think when it comes to Australia and Oceania broadcasts, of course he's going to know, seemingly more than anyone else, because he does. He is so much more prepared and in line and in tune with the Oceania athletes because he's there and he sends out this thing every single year. And it's a little bit of a smaller pool, I would say, for Australia. Sean does the same thing for US, and Sean works mostly in the US or in Europe. And so there's very few people in this world that probably know as much as Sean and Jeremy in terms of all of these athletes. I think Jeremy gets a little bit more of an opportunity to share that because he got more time to talk and wasn't limited in terms of, timing because of CrossFit obligations and ESPN obligations. So we got more time to share. I think the two of them, they are so equal in terms of knowledge, ability, and just what they bring to the show. They are so amazing at what they do. And I mean, I learned different things from both of them, which is really fun.
I think that last point you mentioned is a critical one, because even in the comment there, he mentioned that I'm able to do that on these world tour stops that I do, but I'm held accountable to nobody. I can, I'm just basically just talking the entire time, and there's no ad reads, there's no sponsor links, there's no time limits from ESPN, there's nobody talking in my ear that's telling me I have to do this, or we're switching to that, or throwing up this QR code or anything else. And it's a huge game changer. So like I'm grateful for the fact that I can, share that information, but I think sometimes it can be lost in the receiving part of that, to understand that not every environment that's set up for a competition or a broadcast or whatever allows for the same freedom to go into as much depth. I would make my kind of a thought in regards to that is that if you know that's the case, for example, at the CrossFit Games, then what can you do to supplement it? And that's where you have the desk shows that are before and after. And and guess what? CrossFit offers those also. But again, they're held to a certain timeline and some restrictions that I think sometimes can be overlooked. So I appreciate you sharing kind of the excellence that both of them bring to the table, but also that the kind of playgrounds they're playing in are quite different.
They're quite different. And I think it's really tough to compare people that are in kind of the same position, but given different tools to do what they do. I think if, I actually talked to Sean, and we talked before Syndicate, and we said, hey guys, to our team, is there any way we can do every single heat? Because we want to, and we're ready. And Sean was more than ready, but it just wasn't feasible. And it just wasn't acceptable for us. And, if we could, we would have, but it just wasn't on the table. And so I will say to that, if he had been given the opportunity, I think you would have seen that Sean is, just as knowledgeable about everybody as well.
Yeah, and he's not only has a lot of that experience doing it, but he has experience preparing to do it. So he has, as you kind of referenced there, figured out a format that works really well for him. And that is so critical. I've been in situations before where I've done the research and provided it for people, which is nice, then they have it. But if you don't do it for yourself, you don't know how to access it when you need it. And it's not at the forefront of your mind. So you're not going to talk about it. So even though that information's there, it's just there, but you're not going to use it. And Sean has, he's been doing this for, I think, 12 or 13 years now at the CrossFit Games, but he's continuing to refine his own preparation method so that, he wants to keep getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he is one of those people that knows how to get better and that listens too. So if people were saying, or anyone in leadership was saying, hey, we wish you would talk about this more, or we wish you would work on this sort of delivery, I would say both of them would take that and say, okay, I'll make it better. I will provide the best possible show I can. And there are no two people in this world that I trust more than, two of them to put on a good show.
Hey, Bella, we got you up for another 8 minutes.
Sure. I mean, we can go to what time is it? It's almost 2. We got some time. Let's see. What is your thing to fry? Air fry that you think no one else does? Oh, great question. But I also so one of my buddies owns a Uncrustables company called Chubby Snacks, and they're phenomenal. They're organic, and I think he'll be coming to the teen CrossFit Games because we were, all yapping away about snacks at the teen camp we were at last week. And I said, have you guys ever had these? And they hadn't had them yet. And they jumped at it. They love it. They're in Invictus now. I introduced them to Karen Martin. And so they're the snack of all of us around here. And I put them in the air fryer and they're so good.
Have you made gnocchi in the air fryer?
I have not made gnocchi in the air fryer. I actually don't eat a ton of pasta. I wish I did. It's just not one of my foods that I'm.
That woman that you just mentioned, Karen.
Yes.
She is amazing.
I love her so much. I wish she was my mom. I tell people all the time because we share a last name that's my mom, and she goes with it. She's fine with it. So.
She has done and does so much for the athletes at Invictus over the years.
Yeah.
No kidding. She's great.
Bella, you mentioned Pitt, that you left there and you went immediately over to the Pit. Talk about that experience in terms of going from the high that was a Syndicate where you're the top athletes in the world, and now you're being asked to kind of play a mentor role. I mean, how do you make that transition, and what did this past weekend mean to you?
Oh my goodness, this is actually so fun. I've been looking forward to Pit Teen Camp. Ever since they pitched me the idea of it. So I came in, and these kids, they're some of the sweetest kids you've ever met in your entire life. And they're some of the most serious kids I've ever met in my entire life. Oh my goodness. And so kind of listening into their conversations before we ever really got into it, I was like, oh, I know my role for this week is I'm going to love on these kids. I'm going to teach them that they should be kids first and that it's not that serious. And then I'm going to provide them with, a little bit of knowledge in terms of how to maintain a positive, perspective about everything we're doing. It's some of the first things they told me was that they felt burnout from the open. And they're 14 years old.
Mhm.
And so, immediately I thought, okay, well, I've got a job to do this weekend, and it's not going to be easy, but I'm going to love every second of it. And so, I mean, we did goal setting sessions where we started this exact time. I had everybody circle up and we talked about how we started CrossFit and who brought us into it, why we started it. We talked about some of our short-term goals, how to set goals, how to navigate if something that we thought we really wanted doesn't end up happening and how we can change that. We talked about all of those things, how to navigate feeling burnout and how to support each other and that it's not that serious. And a lot of these athletes, they are, 14, 15 years old. Like, well, what's your big goal? And a lot of them say, I'm going to win the games. And the pressure that you feel to win the CrossFit Games at 15 when you won't be in the open division for, another 4 years, that's crazy to me. And I love that they have these big goals. But if, 6 of them are saying, I'm going to win the games, well, one person does from each gender, one, and you're the same age. And so kind of allowing them to understand that there is no pressure put on them and that they can have fun doing fitness and they should. So we did, I mean, every day was fun. Jared Underton came, we did snatches with him, and oh my goodness, he's one of my favorites. He's a big teddy bear, and the kids absolutely loved him.
Yep.
So we did weightlifting. They did it's me. She PR'd her jerk in that moment. We did weightlifting. We did a bodybuilding session. That's my girl Rubes. Bodybuilding. We did a triathlon. We swam in the lake. We made s'mores. We had so much fun at a summer camp. And I think the point of it was for them to all understand that they're not alone in this journey and that they can come with each other and they can relate to each other. I told them my only rule for the weekend was no shenanigans. No shenanigans. And
What's that mean, shenanigans?
you know what it means. We've all been to summer camp. No shenanigans. And so every night I would always, before I would leave and go to my cabin, I would look at them and say, no shenanigans. They'd say, no shenanigans, no shenanigans. And there were no real shenanigans.
I just picture you walk around at like 10:30 at night with the flashlight, just like
I was in bed. No way. I was asleep.
I know. Looking out for shenanigans.
There was one night it was raining and they still wanted to go out in the lake. And we learned last year that there's snakes in the lake, especially at night. So I'm not doing that, especially in the rain. No way. So they're all outside in the lake in front of my cabin, all giggling and swimming and doing all this stuff. And me and the rest of the parents are texting like, dang, why are they outside right now? I'm in bed. It's, it's so funny. They're awesome. And I'm really proud that all of them kind of went out of their comfort zones. I would say the first day we had a girls' table, we had a boys' table, and there was no interaction, no mingling. And then by the last day, everyone was just so excited to be friends. And it was really fun to watch each and every one of these kids come out of their comfort zones and then share things with me that, I'm not their mom, I'm not their coach, I'm not their peer. I am truly just a friend and a big sister type character for them.
Role model.
I mean, I would like to be. And I think, all of them they were really receptive to it. So that was, if anything, almost the most rewarding weekend of the year so far. They're very good kids.
Did you learn anything about the Pit Team Throwdown CrossFit Games that's going to be coming up in a couple months while you're there?
Heck yeah, I did. So I did not go to Kalamazoo, so I didn't get a chance to go see the actual venue. But I don't know how many specific events. I think they'll be at the pit for one day. So, I mean, they could do anything. There's a dirt bike trail, there's a running trail, there's a lake, there's a slag field, there's anything. So whatever Brock decides and the team decide to program, I would expect just a whole bunch of outside. They're not going to be in the gym. They're going to be doing something. So I'm excited for them. I think if you've never been out there, you don't know how cool that actual facility campus is. I mean, we saw it last year. It's so unique. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced before. So all those kids are very lucky.
Yeah, and I think he has like the creative freedom to use that place that he's comfortable with and used to in any way he wants, and then also a new facility to show off and to show off a different style of maybe his programming as well.
Yeah, I think it's been great.
One of the
I will say that the
listeners here says that they've got a young lady called or named Belinda Dennett going to the teen games. She's a weapon.
Let's
We'll be
go.
looking for her in September.
We'll be looking for
Oh, and
Belinda.
is it the last weekend of August?
It's Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend, yeah.
First weekend of September. Yeah.
I will say,
I'm stoked.
Yeah, I would say that you know, when they first initially talked about the split from the games, that I was kind of I don't know, I was kind of not disappointed by it, but I will say that everyone's kind of they've marketed and they've really leaned into it a lot. And I wasn't sure like what the participation would be like, but over the last 2 weeks at Syndicate and also at West Coast, talking to some of the teen athletes, you know, whether it be Kendall or Reese Littlewood, you know, they're excited about the teen games. And that says a lot when you have the top teens are saying they're excited, because it wasn't always like that in past years. Came to the pit because they had the games, and now that they combined the two, it's great.
I think it's awesome. I think the teens are finally going to have an environment where they can be teens and they can be competitors at the same time. I think when when you have the elite individuals and teams, and it's all of these adults that are doing what they need to do, and it's the top dogs and all this, there's pressure put on them to, you know, act like adults and be that way. But here they can go compete and they can go be teens, and they're going to get all of the possible attention that they could have. The only thing that I've heard in terms of negativity is a lot of these teenagers, their parents started them in CrossFit, and their parents are competing at Masters, and that's the same weekend. And so a couple teens have had to say, I'm going to not accept my invitation so I can go support my parents. And that is, I mean, that is selflessness, and that's a beautiful thing. But I wish they were not on the same weekend.
Wait, Khan's a mentor? Oh no.
Yeah, they told me Khan was a mentor, and they said, please, for the 18 and up.
No.
For the 18 and up, come on.
No, this is a sham. This is not gonna happen.
I said he's for the college kids only.
Yeah, the college division only. Yeah, that's why he's last. He's like that. Yeah, exactly.
For the college kids and only the boys.
How come I didn't know? I'm gonna have a conversation with Khan about this.
We still got to get him on the show at some point, maybe in July.
Oh, we will.
He owes us, since he's not going to be able to help us at the games this year.
I know his dumbass, you know, went and qualified for the games on a team.
Bella, I thought you'd like this one here. Draw your dagger. This is Chubby Snacks is his nickname. His wife calls him.
Hey, get them on Amazon. They're so good. If I could, and it would.
She can just buy them for you, and it can be a chubby snack for her chubby snack.
That's so cute. They're so good.
You got the sign
they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. Anybody that likes peanut butter and jellies. I don't know. I can ask the CEO. I can ask him.
Yeah, ask him if he is this Photoshop or
y'all got to get you some of these. You've got. I promise.
Sebastian Nye, Bella, your sideline reporting at Torian and East Coast semifinals was super smooth and professional. You have skills at what you do. I hope that you guys who've had a chance to listen to her talk about some of that, were listening to what she said, is that in order to do that and to present, you know, herself and those athletes that well, all of the things that goes into not just the years of doing this and refining a skill, but leading up to the competition, the conversations that they have with athletes, the conversations that are on site internally, the thoughts that go through her mind, the notes that she's taking, the way she reads an athlete there. She has to deal with the stuff coming in. That it's amazing to recognize this, and it absolutely was true. But also, it's good to have the understanding that that doesn't just happen by accident. You know, there might be someone out there who could just stroll up there and do a really good job at that. But I did that job for the first time at Wadapalooza this year, and you know, having done it once, I know that there are things that I would change if I get the chance to do it again, because
Yeah.
that preparation goes a long way.
It goes a long way, and I think you can kind of Pro 3, let's go. I think you can
No, go ahead,
also,
Bella.
I mean, you learn the story about people through, at least with me, I write everything down, and so I can reflect on what's happened, and then when I see people again, I can go back to it and like, "Oh, remember when that happened? Oh, they've come so far, like this? This is
Yeah, like
just about
the
fitness."
job doesn't stop, right? It's like
No,
you think
it's
back and you
just about
prepare for the next one.
yeah, and I think after all of the semifinals ended, when I got home, I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, "Dang, I don't have to talk about CrossFit for a second." And then I'm talking with some of my friends, and like, I have no questions left in my brain right now. I don't wanna ask a
I'm going
person
to
a
the beach.
question. Yeah, I don't wanna ask a person a question for 2 days, and I didn't. All my friends that I was texting with, I was like, "I adore you. I think you're great people. I have no questions in me right now. Not a one." And
Mm.
it's not that I don't wanna know things. I just don't have questions in me right now.
Yeah.
That's it. It's as simple as
Reason
that.
why the reason why I brought this up is Bella, you were talking about like, and Brian, you were too, about being putting in a new role. And it looks like all three of us are gonna be in some new roles come June 29th.
Heck
So
yeah.
Is
so
this the
yeah,
next travel on your calendar, Bella?
God bless, yeah.
hell
I gotta
yeah.
be home for 2 weeks. Oh!
But for those that don't know, Brian and Bella, they will be doing the announcing, not the announcing, the play-by-play and color commentary for the reps ahead.
Yep.
And I'll be sliding into Bella's role as an MC for the event. So can't wait.
Got big shoes to fill.
Yeah, actually, I will.
Actually, size
Bella,
8
I'm
and a
going to
half
send you
shoes.
I'll send you we're having all of the 8 athletes from the main cards on the podcast the week before. So I'll send you the schedule for that to see if you can make any of them.
I'll do it.
You're welcome at all of them, of course.
I'll do it.
That'll be at the end of the month. But yeah, I think we're going to let Bella go. That was amazing. Thank you so much for the work that you did at the semifinals. I think that it was, clearly well received by people at home. I know that the athletes appreciate you and the work and the love that you have for telling their stories, highlighting their successes, and the challenges that come along with, being an athlete in this sport. And it was cool to hear some of the kind of behind the scenes and inside the head of someone who gets a chance to do that. That a lot of people get to see, but maybe don't get to know exactly what goes into it.
Thanks, guys. It was fun.
Inside the head of Bella, where there's many things inside her head, apparently.
But no shenanigans.
I got some voices in my head, but I'll tell you what, if you shenan once, you're gonna shenan again. And that's what the kids kept saying. So we said no shenanigans at all.
If you guys missed the start of the show and you want to go back, we had Charlie Lima from the BCS Classic and then Sam and Kelly from Fight for the Fittest sharing some of the information that they have about their competitions this year. BCS Classic registration is still going on. All the proceeds from that go to Mayhem Missions, so you guys can check that out. And Patrick referenced it in the middle of the show there, but Chad Mueller has been wanting to follow me around at a competition and do a vlog for basically a year now, since last year at semifinals. And finally, this year, we gave him the chance to do it at the Syndicate Crown. So he had his camera out, as Bella was saying, for most of the competitions. And he's put together a three-part for the 3 days there. I've only watched the first 2. I got to watch the last one, but they're about 20 minutes long. Just kind of documenting my experience at the Syndicate Crown East Regional this year. The first one's dropping, I think, in an hour. So you can check those out on B.Friendly Fitness YouTube. It's our first time doing it, so we're super open to feedback, positive, negative, questions, what you'd like to see more or less of, if you'd like to see it again at all. A lot of people do these kind of different flavors, and so this one is we call it Friendly Encounters because it is more or less just you'll see some stuff from the competitions for sure, but this gives you a little more in-depth into what those competition weekends are like for me, the different people that I get to talk to, see, interact with. So please check that out. Chad's been working super hard on it. I'm really impressed and proud of the work that he's done, and I hope that you guys enjoy it too.
Bella, what do you think of that picture right there in the middle?
Dude, I'm so stoked on Sydney Smith going to the games,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
I don't
I'm
care.
so proud of her.
I really don't know how they're going to do. I haven't really taken a deep dive into team competition yet, but I will say they'll probably be the most hyped and most animated. They're going to make a lot of friends.
I just need
They're
them
going to have a lot of
to,
fans by the end of the weekend.
yeah, I just need them to make it through. If we do cuts, just the first cut. That's all we got to do.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all we
Yeah.
got to do.
But yeah, please, like Brian said, please go check out. Chad's been working his ass off with that combination of
I'm just
myself.
curious
And
about this. What other option is there besides a premiere if we're not doing it live? I actually don't know.
you could just go. You could do a premiere, or you could just release it.
Oh, well, Chad decided to do a premiere, and I'm trusting Chad with that project. So that's my
I
answer.
would trust Chad. There's people I
Yeah,
trust
sure.
in life. I would trust Chad.
Oh, speaking of trust,
Speaking of trust, it is not
part of the loser group.
Speaking of trust, it is not your
I'm a
internet
part of
today,
the-
Patrick.
I know. I am a part of the group of losers here. I am one and done on around the whiteboard, just like you two now.
Okay. I will say my around the whiteboard was pretty freaking tough. Pretty freaking tough. I got points off because I talk too much. I'm a professional yapper. Of course I talk.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Oh, hello, Andrew.
I
Nice
lost.
to see
Hi,
you here.
Andrew.
You lost
up,
because you
Andrew?
spent too much time placating Andrew on the show.
Hey,
Me?
Not
no,
you,
me.
Patrick.
I
It's
thought I
either
had
that-
I thought it was a great argument. Andrew, if you disagree, you go ahead.
No, those shows are fun. It's cool that Peter invited you on it, and oh, that would be an interesting idea. Make it live and share the screen and run the video. All right. Anyway, we have Harry Lightfoot coming on the show tomorrow. Amy Kringle will be on Friday, and then Bella will be back Sunday night with Georgia Pryor and Peter Ellis. It'll be Monday morning for them, Sunday night for us, and we'll have opportunity to learn about some of those last spots into the games out of the Oceania region. So earlier this week, we had Paige Semenza on and Henrik Eppelainen. If you didn't check those out and want to learn a little bit more about them, I actually spoke to people who've known them both very well for a long time. One person told me that he doesn't remember Paige ever diving into the early part of her career like that. And the people I know from Finland said that was, even though it may not appear that open compared to some other personalities in the space, that was kind of the most that Henrik had ever opened up in a public setting before. So Happalainen came up as one of the potentially most underrated during Pedro's show today. And if you're interested in learning about those guys, you can go back and check out those two as well. I don't even know if Patrick's with us anymore, so I'm just going to close this out. If we don't see you today, we'll see you tomorrow. Harry Lightfoot. And thank you, Bella. And for everyone out there, be friendly, our friends.